La 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 la.
There. Sting. Bloop, bloop. So on January 25th, Scots all around the world will be celebrating Burns Night, a night stuffing themselves with haggis, neeps and tatties to celebrate the life and works of poet Robbie Burns.
But it's not just poets that the Scots make, they also make tons of brilliant video games, and that guy.
Aye, that is right. And games from all over the world can't resist putting in Scottish characters or making references to the most beautiful country in the whole world.
Yeah, you're being a bit biased there, Graeme.
Absolutely not. Scientific fact.
Graeme, I'm not quite
Freedom!
He looks quite scary when he does that.
It's just,
His eyes bulge
It's
out.
that national pride. It's beautiful.
The eyes bulge.
Here's some Scottish cool things in games. Back in 1991, everyone mistakenly thought that Lemmings threw themselves off of cliffs. Okay. Well, a little company in Dundee called DMA Designs decided to take this idea and run with it. Not off a cliff, but to their computers where they created a classic, Lemmings. One of the very first video games I ever played, it gave players the chance of getting as many of the constantly walking lemmings with a death wish from the entrance to the exit as they could. You'd assign different roles to them, usually having to sacrifice some for the greater good. I'm sorry, little guy. Originally released on the Amiga, Atari ST and PC, I played the PC version, the game was a huge success and ported onto loads of different platforms, helping it to sell millions of copies and create a long line of sequels.
When you think of Scotland's biggest exports, you might not immediately think of Grand Theft Auto. But as DMA Design's first big non-Lemmings game, you might be surprised to hear that GTA is Scottish-born, Scottish-bred, and still made in Scotland. And you might also be surprised to hear that GTA almost never saw the light of day. In fact, the first game missed all of its development milestones and only just survived multiple attempts by publishers and moneymen to kill it. How different things could have been. Instead, after having its name changed from Race and Chase by future Rockstar legends Dan and Sam Houser, Grand Theft Auto arrived on PC in 1997. First glance, it was a basic looking top-down driving game with pretty poor graphics, but where GTA nailed it immediately was with its free roaming cities, its satirical look at the American dream, and most importantly, the chance to finally be the bad guy. Back in 1997, this was all pretty revolutionary. If you add in a mission structure that was inspired by the space trading sim Elite, and you had a game that looked like a wee arcade time waster, but had the murky depths of Loch Ness. And here's another surprise, GTA actually reviewed pretty poorly, but the game's content matter meant that a canny publicist for the game was able to secure priceless column inches screaming about how it was going to corrupt us all, and represented the end of civilization, and was going to make puppies blow up, etc. That helped make it a best-selling phenomenon. After a couple of London-based expansion packs, GTA 2 followed in 1999. This time the action was moved out of Liberty City, Vice City and San Andreas and into the near-futuristic Anywhere City. Again, GTA 2 didn't review particularly well, but it did introduce a bunch of features that have had a huge impact on the rest of the series, like multiple gangs with varying trust levels, more powerful forms of law enforcement based on how bad you've been, side missions like driving a taxi or bus, kill frenzies, and pedestrian behaviour that made the whole city feel much more alive.
So one game which has Scottish references dotted across the franchise is Call of Duty. Now, let's start with a game you will have played more recently and has an entire map based in Scotland, which is also the largest map in Call of Duty Ghosts, and that's Stonehaven. Stonehaven is a town in Aberdeenshire near the coast which helps create the backdrop for the map. One thing I found really cool on this map is a couple of the Easter eggs. Firstly, the castle on the map is named Sir Rosa Castle after the senior environment artist at Infinity Ward, and the person who lives there is Lord Dobby, who is John Dobby, another senior environment artist at Infinity Ward, rather than naming it after Dunatar Castle, which is what helped inspire the map. Scotland is also heavily involved with the Modern Warfare series, with the main character you play in the first couple of games, Soap McTavish, being from Scotland and having a Scottish accent. Nah, really? He's from Scotland and has a Scottish accent? But one really interesting thing was at the Modern Warfare 2 E3 preview in 2009, Soap actually had an English accent.
Good luck, mate. See you on the far side. Good luck, mate. I'll see you on the far side.
And he also supports the Glasgow Football Club, which is a fictional Glaswegian football team.
Developed by DMA Design and published by Rockstar, Grand Theft Auto 3 was the first 3D GTA game. It offered players a new perspective, a third-person perspective to be precise, as they caused havoc around Liberty City. The game was a massive success, and once DMA Design became Rockstar North, Vice City and San Andreas followed soon after. Developers were not afraid to put in nods to their home, Bonnie, Scotland. Head to Francis International Airport's official website from GTA 3 and you'll see that one of the flight destinations is Leith in Edinburgh, where their offices were based at the time. Also, 2 of the bridges in San Andreas were modelled off the Forth rail and road bridges, which connect Edinburgh and Fife. If players went to bet on horses at an inside track, they could see some interesting Scottish-themed names. There was Dundee Ned, Ned meaning non-educated delinquent, referencing some of the rougher residents north of the Tay, and Scotland Nil, referring to Scotland's amazing ability to get 0 goals in way too many football matches. Just to name a couple. In Vice City, Rockstar North also introduced their own fictional heavy metal Scottish band, Love Fist. Compiled of 4 men with innuendo-filled names, Willie, Percy, Jez and Dick, I see what you did there, Rockstar, the band had a not-so-big fan who wanted to see them dead.
Thing is, we need someone to drive the limo we can trust, because that nutter keeps making threats!
Tell me, I need my mom!
We're all breaking ourselves, man!
Well, maybe you wouldn't be so mad if one of them wasn't wearing an Argentina football shirt.
Brace yourself, folks, because things are about to get darker than a wet January afternoon in Aberdeen. So already no stranger to controversy, Rockstar North's next game after Vice City was a psychological survival horror that took its inspiration from the VHS video nasties and snuff movies of the 1980s. With a mysterious and whispering film director giving you instructions, you were dumped into Carcer City and told to stealthily dispatch a series of increasingly dodgy gang members in some of the most violent and disturbing ways ever seen in a video game.
You're warming up our audience nicely.
I'll still never look at a carrier bag in the same way again. Now, there are a few ways to read all of this. The first and the most simplistic is that it was a straightforward stealth game supercharged with gratuitous violence for shock factor and controversy. The second is that it's an incredibly atmospheric and really tightly plotted experience that delves into the darker recesses of horror and violence more than any other video game had really dared to do. And the last, and probably the most interesting for me, is that Manhunt is one of the most complex examinations of violence in entertainment ever. You're forced to commit and watch these terrible acts to progress, and you're rewarded for planning more elaborate and violent assassinations. But the folks you're offing are a long way from being angels themselves, and as it turns out, you're arguably the victim of the whole story. And to make things even more psychologically intense, you could even wear a headset to have the director talk directly into your ear, and you could make noises into the mic to distract your victims. Predictably, Manhunt attracted controversy like hangovers attract Iron Brew, and there were noises that even some Rockstar staff felt a bit uneasy about the whole thing. But it established Rockstar North as a studio who would go further than most to get inside the heads of their players, and sits quite nicely into the tartan noir genre of literature coming out of Scotland. Let's just not think too much about Pigsy though, eh? Oof.
So as I'm sure you're already aware thanks to Ellen, GTA is made in Scotland and is filled to the brim of Scottish references. The Love Fists also make a reappearance where Willie appears in a side mission where Trevor must knock out his gold tooth and bring it to a man named Nigel as a souvenir.
He's trying to kill me, I'm a musical icon!
Oh, and if you kill Willie in the mission, Trevor says, "Oops, sorry Love Fist fans." Oh, and you can also buy a Love Fist t-shirt, and in GTA 5 there's also a Scottish flag hidden behind a Sal Tyres sign, and the Scottish flag in front of a beach house, just a little tribute to Rockstar North. But there are tons within GTA 5, such as if you go and play darts, the flights have a Scottish flag as the design, and on a beach in the middle of nowhere, there's a Scottish flag on top of a sandcastle. GTA 4 is exactly the same and filled with Scottish references throughout, with the Nasdaq, which is an American stock exchange, is known as the Borsack, which sounds Scottish for ballsack, aka a scrotum. And the rude references continue with there being Fudd washing powder, and if you want to know what that is, Google it, but not at work or school or ever really. You can also go and see a well-known Scottish comedian called Frankie Boyle at the Comedy Club if you're looking for a good laugh.
Okay, so you've got one of the world's most successful and beloved indie titles on PC with an incredibly loyal fan base, and you have the task of moving it across to console. No biggie? Well, this incredibly important job was given to Forj in Dundee, a town where I spent many a night out at uni. They helped make Minecraft playable on the 360 and Xbox One, and it did extremely well, making the game available to millions of console players with an intuitive new crafting menu. Now there are even more people finding themselves mining coal at 1 AM in the morning. Look, I just need a few more torches, okay?
Dave Jones, the man behind Lemmings and the original GTA at DMA Design, left the developer in the late 90s and started up his own studio back in Dundee, Real Time Worlds. His goal was to make a game that out-GTA'd GTA, taking the same open world city design and sandbox gameplay but giving the player more abilities and toys to go as wild as they wanted. The solution was to allow you to constantly upgrade your special agent to unlock increasingly mad abilities, weapons and vehicles until Pacific City was your own personal playground. But Crackdown's development wasn't plain sailing. After 3 years in development and a move from the original Xbox to Xbox 360, testing showed that players weren't really enjoying the game that much, but importantly, the more they played, the more they liked it. So to make sure that people gave Crackdown a fair shot, the decision was made to bundle the Halo 3 multiplayer beta with every single copy. Now at the time, that was the equivalent of putting a golden ticket inside every single bar of Willy Wonka's chocolate. Suddenly, everyone wanted Crackdown. And then something amazing happened. A demo for Crackdown was released and it became the most downloaded demo in Xbox history and became the second most played game on Xbox after Gears of War at the time. By the time the full game released in 2007, any doubts about Crackdown disappeared quicker than Scotland's chances of qualifying for the World Cup. The gunplay and vehicles were amazing, but where Crackdown really got it right was that just mucking about in Pacific City was such good fun. Climbing the humongous agency tower, doing mental jumps along the beachfront, or creating domino-style chain explosions with barrels were brilliant time wasters. It was also one of the first games to introduce open-world co-op gameplay, which made the lols even more fun. And this year we can look forward to cracking on with Crackdown. It's back in the hands of Dave Jones at his new studio in Reagent, still in Dundee, and ready to use the power of Xbox One and the cloud to fuel the most ridiculous level of destruction seen yet in an open world game. Look out for more on Crackdown 3 this summer.
Wolfenstein also has its own bit of Scottish in it through Fergus Reid, who is BJ's squad leader during the assault on the Death Shed's compound at the beginning of the game. He was born and raised in the Scottish Highlands before he eventually moved to Perth in central Scotland, where he joined the Parachute Regiment and trained as an aviation mechanic before an alcohol-induced bet got him promoted to airman. Alcohol? Scotland? Never would have thought.
Written by Scottish novelist Christopher Brookmyre and based on his book of the same name, you play as Scots lassie Heather Quinn, who gets sucked into Starfire, an old FPS game she played as a teen. Heather comments on the evolving game in her fabulous Scottish accent, making references to life growing up in Scotland. A favourite line of mine is a dig at Stirling, as she finds herself preferring one of the oldie-worldy in-game settings to the real Scottish town.
I'd rather be stuck here forever than in Starfire. Or Stirling, to be honest.
Ooh, harsh.
When Alien Isolation launched, my Twitter feed lit up with some pretty weird stuff. I didn't know you were in Alien Isolation, or nice work in Alien Isolation. I was pretty confused. And it turns out that one of the very first NPCs you meet on Sevastopol Station is Axel, a bloke who everyone thought looked like me, specifically Scottish and bald.
This is your lucky day.
Poor Axel was meant to get off the station about a week before the game starts, but his ride home never arrived and now he's freaking out. He hasn't forgotten his Scottish hospitality though. Not only does he give you your first weapon, he also introduces you to the alien itself. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out too well for Axel, and for the record, I think he looks much more like Irvin Welsh than me.
In 90s point-and-click adventure game Broken Sword Shadow of the Templars, you played as George Stobbart, an American tourist in Paris who ends up on a great quest to stop the Templars. Oh, isn't it always the way? You try and have a nice holiday and then you end up having to try to save the world. Ugh. Towards the end of their journey, he and French journalist / obvious love interest Nicole Collard find themselves on a train ride to Scotland, during which they meet some drunken Geordies with slightly dodgy accents.
Having a party? No, this is British.
Come on, join us, man!
And end up having a fight on a train. So, just like a regular commute along the UK East Coast. They track the Templars down to the ruins of a church in Bannockburn, where they take them out with a massive explosion and manage to ruin it even further.
Scotland's national drink really deserves more coverage in video games, and I'm not talking about Iron Brew. Aye, there's plenty of whiskey to find in the Commonwealth if you fancy mixing up a dirty wastelander, but Super Street Fighter 4 is really the only game I can think of that really takes advantage of the whiskey distillery as a backdrop. Apparently located near Glasgow, the historic distillery allows you to smash up your opponent in front of the pot stills, then presumably get smashed on the malt inside them. Things get even more Scottish, if you can believe it, in the Barrel Buster minigame, where a burly loon in a kilt lobs barrels at you. Cheers, pal!
Another game export from Scotland is golf. Okay, not as exciting as video games in my humble opinion, but it's done pretty well for itself. The old course at St Andrews, a gorgeous little town on the coast of Fife where I went to uni, is known as the home of golf, and I'm not totally sick of golf from my brief time there. No. Not at all. Being such an obviously big part of golf's history, St Andrews features in a range of games, including Icono St Andrews on the N64, only released in Japan.
Good shot!
And most recently, Rory McIlroy PGA Tour. These games give golf fans around the world a chance to play this legendary golf course, and I must say it's quite nice seeing some of the places I walk past every day on my way to lectures.
So there we have it, just some of the Scottish games and references that we all love, and if you've got any yourself, let us know in the comments below.
And if you like this video, do give us a massive thumbs up, we really appreciate it.
And if you love Scotland as much as I do, it is your duty to subscribe to Xbox On. Shout out to Robbie Burns! See you later.
Toast to the haggis!
I've got one. I've not got one. You've all got like a Scottish thing. I was like, haggis. Right. I'm just like,
I feel like I'm sitting with a couple of neeps here.